Day. Welcome to our U.S. Sailing Sanction Certification courses that are happening simultaneous this year. I'm Marie Wise. I'm the Vice Commodore here at Lakewood Yacht Club, and we are very glad to welcome people to our club, especially for an event as important as this. We take safety very seriously. Having this combined event this year lets us leverage our national level instructors with our Harvest Moon Safety Day, bring in some fresh content, and provide an overall excellent day for everyone as we prepare for the race. I would like to introduce Jay Johnson. He is the chair of the HMR committee. Thank you, Jay, for all the work that you do. So if you do have race-specific questions, now you know who to go to. There you go. There are also, I think, some folks here who are still looking to crew in the Harvest Moon race. So if you're a skipper and you're looking for crew, who here is looking for a ride, crew that's available? I got at least one, two.
I need it.
You need a crew. There you go, right here. That's what we do. I'd like to thank our Harvest Moon sponsors. New this year is Mount Gay. Yay, Mount Gay Run. And yes, this does mean red. Harvest Moon Mount Gay hats for everyone. So you do the race this year, you get the first of those. We've got Encore Dredging Partners, Broco Tech, Hayes Rigging, Blackbird Marine, Sea Lake Yachts, Kevin Severance Insurance, Farron Daigle Real Estate Broker, Marina Bay Harbor Marina, and Little Yacht Sales. And we are so grateful for everything that they do to support this event. I have the unenviable task today of keeping us on what is arguably a ridiculously, unrealistically tight schedule. So, to that end, we are going to move ahead rapidly between each session. On the back of your schedule, you'll see bios for each of our presenters, and I think it's worth looking at to see who we've got speaking to you on some of the different sessions. So with that, I am going to hand it over to David Como. He's been PRO for the Harvest Moon Regatta in the past. He's Deputy PRO this year, standing in for this year's PRO, Bob Pumpkin.
Let's see if that works. It does. Good morning, and thank you, everybody. Marie's going to put up the first slide, which says that I'm Bob Hunkins, but I'm not Bob Hunkins. A couple of preliminary remarks, in particular about what the program is over the next 2 days. We've had questions over time, and I had a question just a few minutes ago. There are 3 components to today and tomorrow. This morning is let me start this way. Harvest Moon Regatta has 2 educational requirements regarding safety. One is being here today. You have to have the skipper and at least 2 or a third of your crew here today. The other is a coastal safety at sea certificate. Those last 5 years, you have to have it. If you don't have it, there's 2 ways of getting it. One is you can go online and do their seminar and pay through it through U.S. Sailing. The other is you can stick around this afternoon, but you must pay for the certificate to get the certificate. Whitney's out in the lobby. Many of you may have met her already. If you haven't paid for it and you want that second component covered by this afternoon, go out there and make sure that you're in line to receive the certificate. Tomorrow is an excellent course, the hands-on component. You get your International Safety at Sea certificate. Important for even longer distance offshore international open water events, but it's not required for Harvest Moon Regatta. I like to start by pointing out that we have a website. Most of you probably have already been there. Most of you probably have not already been everywhere on this site because there's lots of drop-down menus that lead to other drop-down menus, etc. There are a number, but almost all of your questions, if you have questions about anything regarding the race, is somewhere on this page. There was a mention about crew earlier. There is a crew finder on this page. So if you're looking for crew, if one of your crew bails out at the last minute, maybe you need to go up there and say, I need one more crew. If you know of somebody who is not here today, but is looking for a ride, let them know to go to this page, look up the crew finder and use that. There are also links to the notice of race, other very, very key documents. Key dates are listed up here. I'm not going to dwell on most of them. I'm going to point one of them that is up here, one of them that is not, out in particular. If you haven't raced, or if you know somebody who hasn't signed up but you want to beat them in this race, let them know that tomorrow is the last day to sign up for the regatta without paying an additional late entry fee. The other date that I do want to point out that's on here is the skipper's meeting. Attendance at the skipper's meeting is not required. You won't be disqualified if you don't show up, but you will miss out on a lot. You'll miss out on good information from the PRO. It'll be much more difficult also to get your yellow brick tracker. There's a lot of other information at the skipper's meeting that makes it a very important date. Circle it. Make sure that you or a very trusted first mate can be here for that if you are the skipper of your boat. Rating certificate. If you are, almost everybody, I think everybody, will need to have either an ORC certificate, a PERF or PHRF certificate, or if you're a multi-hull, a TOMA rating. If you don't have those yet, go get them right away. The website to get the PERF ratings, which probably applies to most in this room who don't have a certificate already, the website is listed up there. Also, registration has a number of items that are up here. I think the key thing is if you plan to stay after the race in the Port Aransas City Marina, you have to have registered with a docking fee included. If you show up to the Port Aransas City Marina and you paid only the entrance fee for the regatta without a docking fee, they're going to say you don't have a berth here. And it might happen after you've already tied up, because the folks who are out there docking might tie you up and say, sorry, we got to untie you. And basically after you've been racing for a day and a half, that's the last thing you want to hear. So make sure that that is squared away before we go out there. All right, now, there are a few things about this race that make it different. I'm speaking here to people who haven't done this race 1,000 times. In fact, by show of hands, out of curiosity, who in this room has never raced on the Harvest Moon Regatta? So there's a good number of folks in here. Even if you have raced offshore races before, there are a couple of things that make this one different. There's some that make it a lot more fun, candidly. We don't go that far offshore. You will usually, there's a good chance that you'll be within sight, if not VHF or AIS range, of other boats that are out there for the entire duration of the race. And there's one heck of a party on Saturday night during the awards. So those things are outstanding about the race. The one thing that you might see along the Texas Gulf Coast that you may not see in other offshore waters, at least not to the same extent, are unlit structures. There are big standpipes, there are rigs that were built 20, 40 years ago, and nobody's making people put lights on them. In my experience, they do have sounds, they do have whistles, and you hear those whistles when they're right abeam of your boat. So if you didn't see it coming, they're really, really scary. So the whistles don't do too much good, but what this really, really makes important is that you keep a very, very good watch at night, and that your radar is working and you keep an eye on your radar as well. The other thing to point out is there are rules. As in any sailboat race, there are rules to every regatta. A number of the sets of rules, all of which apply to this race, are listed up here. One thing a lot of folks don't, I've been told by people who have been racing for a long period of time, they look at the racing rules of sailing book to see whether they violated a rule or not. And then we say, well, the rule we're talking about here is in the sailing instructions. Oh, but that's not a rule. Yes, it is. The notice of race, those are rules. The SCRs are rules. The sailing instructions are rules. And the reason that all matters is if you break one of those, you can be subject to the penalties that the rules give you for breaking the rules. Okay. So I mentioned the skippers meetings earlier. Here are the basic reasons why it's really, really important to bring somebody there. I'll let everybody read that. But one thing I want to remind you here is that there are two things you need to do to make sure that you've got all your ducks in a row. First, on your registration itself, when you registered, you should have received an email that said, keep this email. So I hope you kept that email. And that email has a link on it that you can click on that link very easily and go in and edit your registration. In your registration, you want to list each of the crew members who is on your boat. So that's item one, is make sure your registration includes each of your crew members. Item number two is you need to make sure each of your crew member has signed the waiver and identified the owner and the vessel that they're going to, on whose boat they're going to be on. That way we can check all of that ideally ahead of the skippers meeting and save everybody a lot of pain. So do those things ahead of time. And by the way, the crew waiver, the links for your crew to sign a waiver, the link to check whether they have signed a waiver, those are all in the notice of race, which again is posted online on the website. Okay, the sailing instructions, there's a little typo here, they're 2025 sailing instructions. They will be posted online no later than the Wednesday before the skippers meeting, which I think is October 1st, but they will be posted online no later than then. I would start checking on maybe Monday of that week, but by Wednesday night of that week, get the sailing instructions. It's my recommendation that you print out a number of copies. You should read through it. A trusted first mate should read through them. Other people should read through them. Make sure that you read through them and understand all those sailing instructions. If you've done the race 20 times, you will know that every year there are tweaks that we make. We learn things each year. I've been PRO in the last 6 years, and there have probably been 5 major significant sailing instructions that we've changed during those 5 years because of things that we learned from the previous years. So read them and be ready with those for questions at the skippers meeting. You're welcome to ask the PRO ahead of time, but if it's just 2 days, I would wait until the skippers meeting so everybody gets the benefit of the question and the answer. Safety inspections. So today is instruction on safety and safety techniques and safety equipment and things like that. But there is, again, one of the rules is the safety equipment requirements, or SERs. There's a separate set for monohulls and for multi-hulls. Both of those, again, are on the website. I hope by now each of you have looked at that document, gone through to make sure that your boat complies with all of those requirements, or that you've got on your checklist to update your boat to comply with some of those requirements. We may inspect your boat, and the time period for when we may inspect your boat on a random or not random basis will be listed in the sailing instructions, and I think they're listed in the NOR. But we may inspect your boat. So make sure your boat is up to code, so to speak. And the main reason for that is not in case you get inspected. It is so that those safety items are there if you need them, so that your boat is rigged appropriately if conditions require it to be. So go through and make sure, for example, on my boat, but there are a lot of things that check the mark, but my boat is new to me, and so I don't know how to use everything, so I'm still going through it, making sure I know how to use everything before we go out. One of the other things that make this race a little different than a lot of other offshore races is the extent of commercial traffic, particularly on the way out to the race, and to a lesser but still very important respect after you finish on your way into the marina. The U.S. Coast Guard, the respective pilots associations, other commercial groups, they are very accommodating to us. Some of those groups would, candidly, when they know that there's 100 sailboats out there, they're not big fans of it. And they might say, hey, Coast Guard, you shouldn't allow this anymore because these guys are behaving dangerously. So don't behave dangerously around really, really big ships. We have not very often had to invoke this rule, but I would not say that we have never had to invoke this rule. If we get a report, for example, from the Pilots Association, for example, from the Coast Guard, that sailing vessel XYZ definitely interfered with a commercial vessel, and I can show you their track, or I can show you what happened. As far as we're concerned, we can't have you in our race anymore. One bad event with commercial shipping will probably cause the authorities to cancel this race, and that's not something we want to take place. So we take this very, very seriously. Another thing we take very seriously is being able to communicate with folks. Now, when you're out there, we can't reach you on 16 because you're too far away from wherever we happen to have a radio on land, but other boats can, and the Coast Guard can. If you're so far offshore that the Coast Guard can't reach you, you're probably not doing well in the race. So keep channel 16 on and monitor it at all times. There have been situations when the Coast Guard has been trying to reach somebody and they're not answering their radio, and so they have scrambled assets, which are very costly to all of us as taxpayers because somebody wasn't listening to their radio. So we take this almost as seriously as interfering with commercial traffic. As a practical matter, you might have a fellow sailor that's within a mile of you who's calling because they really, really need help. And in those cases, if you're not listening, you won't know that they need your help. So it's really important to list those. I'd also make a note about EPIRBs. Obviously, your EPIRB needs to be registered to your vessel, and that needs to be current, and they need to have your current information so they can call you if it goes off. It seems like every year or so we have one accidentally go off. I remember one that went off because the water in the bilge got to it. I personally don't store my EPIRB in the bilge, but you know, just be aware. If they've got your phone number and you're registered, they will call you, and they will not call you on 16. They'll call you on the phone first, and at least you'll know about it early on. So communication is very important to us. Another thing that is very important to us is race tracking. I'm not going to dwell a whole heck of a lot on this because we do have a presentation by John Morse in a little bit about the yellow bricks. But what I will say is very important is on your way out to the race course, like right before the check-in, which is basically inside the jetties, and we'll go over that on the next slide. It's important that in addition to checking in, you've got your yellow brick, it is turned on. If you've got a device on your boat that you can check to make sure it's working, that's great. But also be aware that the check-in folks might be trying to reach you if they don't see you at that time. So those things are really important to the entire, to the running of the race. Also, if your yellow brick isn't working at the finish, you won't get a finish time. And that can really ruin somebody's day. Check-in, I do want to point out where it takes place. Everybody can see on this chart, you see the yellow thumbtack that has the number 11 green marker. I would recommend that you check in well before you get there because the folks who are checking you in and are looking for you with binoculars and have got radios and all that are not actually close to 11. They are close to where the seawall road meets the jettings. I'm going to walk away from the mic and point at it. They're going to be right there. So start checking in somewhere around here. You'll hear other people checking in. Wait for a break on the radio and check in near there. Again, the procedures for checking in are listed in the sailing, will be listed in the sailing instructions. So please take a look at those. All of what I'm talking about here is going to be in the sailing instructions. I think the most important thing to know is what fleet or class you are in and what that fleet or class's starting time is. You don't want to start before your start, but you want to be pretty close to the start, but before your starting sequence. So if your starting sequence is 2:15 and it's 2 o'clock, stay far away from that starting line so that the folks who are trying to start at 2 o'clock have as much room, so it's only their fleet in that area starting. And by far away, I don't mean 2 boat lengths. You know, there could be 30 people on that, 30 different boats on that starting line. So I mean 20 boat lengths. Stay far away, make sure nobody confuses you with somebody who is a racer. There is a countdown that you should be able to hear on the radio, and I would remember, stay well clear of the line. Then when you get to your actual start, here's what I really don't want you to do. There is no need for that. It's a 147 nautical mile race. The edge that you get by being 1 second ahead of the next guy is probably going to play out over those 147 miles. The other thing about it is there's a really long line. I don't know if any of y'all have ever been to Pleasure Pier, and if you've walked from the seawall out to the end of Pleasure Pier, but the starting line is that same distance. It was, I want to say, in the neighborhood of, I can't remember how many feet it was. I knew it last year. But there's plenty of room. Somehow people tend to barge up. I remember 2 years ago, there were a number of people who were really fighting for the pin in because they thought it was super important. There was one boat that was way up by itself close to Pleasure Pier. Heck, I thought it was uncomfortable. I wouldn't have been comfortable getting that close to Pleasure Pier, but they were sailing around that side of Pleasure Pier. They won handily. And they had really fresh, clean air, and they didn't have to worry about maneuvering because they were the only boat over there. I'm not saying get too close to Pleasure Pier, but I'm saying the most important thing is to start clear with clear air. So give yourself, there's plenty of room out there, use it. Other things, the race committee will be giving you the start on the radio. They'll be doing countdowns and things like that, but they are busy doing a number of things, counting the number of boats who just started, trying to track boats. If a boat was over early, they will be listing, they will be calling out people who are over early. I'll mention some options that go there, but they'll be watching some of those boats to see if they do two-turn penalties or to see if they come back to clear the line. Which is all to say, for example, if you have a 2:30 start and your question in your mind is our start at 2:30 or is it 2:45? Don't call the race committee and ask them that question. Read your sailing instructions. You should have read them ahead of time, but go ahead and refer to your sailing instructions. If you ask a question of the race committee during this period of time, chances are they're not going to answer you because they just can't. So just be aware of that. The other thing is we put a pin out there, and it's actually not as easy as you would think to get a boat in Galveston to go out there and drop that pin and then stay out there in conditions which are great for sailboats, but not necessarily great for small power boats for a really long time. So after the race, we'll keep an eye on, okay, are there folks that look like they're still trying to start? We'll let those fit folks start. But if we don't see anybody in the immediate area, we may pick up the mark. If you are running late to the start, just get close enough to the pleasure pier, figure out what time it is, and call us and let us know that you are in fact racing, about what time you started, so that the race committee will know. Over early boats. There is, if you are over early, there are two situations. If you're more than a full boat length ahead of the line, there is no exoneration available. And the PRO will tell you, sail number 235 or sailboat named Fido, you're over early, exoneration is available. Or they may say exoneration is not available. If the PRO is silent, assume that exoneration is not available. This is all going to be in the sailing instructions. But what you see is you basically, if exoneration is available, so you weren't that far over the line, you could do a 2 turns penalty if you feel like that's better than going and restarting. If you don't restart or if you don't exonerate yourself, it's a 1 hour penalty that's added to your time. So if you realize halfway down the course that you were over early, don't go back. Okay, sailing the course. This has got a list. All of these points are going to be listed in your sailing instructions. Basically, keep all of the marks outside, and then we'll talk about finish next. This is the basic course. Keep the freeport light to starboard, and then there's a little bit of a dog leg to the right. And although we also require to keep the Matagorda light to starboard, it's basically a run line from freeport to the finish line. If during the race you withdraw, it is very, very important that you let us know. We keep track of the boats that are out there, and we get worried if a boat disappears, or if a boat is later than expected, or if a boat's yellow brick, for example, just goes off the screen. Maybe if you withdraw it, some people might withdraw it and turn off their yellow brick. Please don't do that. So please let us know. I am withdrawing, and we will ask you first of all, we'll probably ask you, is everybody okay? And then we'll ask you, what are your intentions? Some people turn around, go back, and then they drive down for the party. Some people keep sailing, but they've withdrawn because they're using their engine or what have you, especially in light air. Sometimes that happens. Just let us know that you've withdrawn. The finish, if you haven't done Harvest Moon Regatta in the last 5 years, the finish is different. And this is key. This is really, really important. The finish line is a virtual finish line between two lat long coordinates, which you can see on your GPS. It doesn't look that big on this chart, but that line is 0.9 nautical miles long. And yet every year some people miss that line. They're not able to hit 0.9. And the reason is actually, I can kind of understand it, which is, what you don't see here is that the shoreline goes northeast from this direction, so you're coming in at an angle to this line. But what I would recommend is that you aim for the middle, and then if you're off by 100 feet, you're still fine. Go ahead and put these 2 GPS coordinates, but on my run line, I'm going to put the GPS coordinate that's right between these two to make sure I don't miss this line. So that's what I would recommend doing. Now, the yellow bricks are very reliable. We've had very, very few problems with the yellow bricks, but as a belt and suspenders, what we did the first year and we required is still probably not a bad idea. And that is, take a picture of your coordinates at, when you're finishing with the time down to the second, so that we have a backup if for whatever reason the yellow bricks fail. Another really good, just to show that you crossed the finish line, another really good thing to do is if you're a chart plotter, if you've got it's keeping track of your course, save that course so that we can go look at your chart plotter if we need to do it. Typically, there's 1 or 2 cases that we go through that process every year, and it's less about what time did you finish and more about whether you finished, which takes me back to finish in the middle of the line if you can. All right, after finishing, after you finish, you're going to dock probably in the Port Aransas Marina. Go ahead and switch, assuming you're going to the Port Aransas Marina, switch your VHF to the channel that will be listed in your sailing instructions for the docking committee and for the harbor master. Let them know that you finished and you're on your way in. Again, let me go back. You'll notice that finish line is well before you get into the jetties. The reason for this is if there is commercial shipping coming out of there, some of those LNG tanker ships really take up almost that entire channel. So it's not, you'd rather not be going up that channel while a tanker is coming out. So be aware of that before you go up the channel. You don't need to call the docking committee right after you finish. Once you're going up the channel, you're safely on your way up, that's really the good time. When you've got a jetty on either side of you, it's probably a good time to call the docking committee, let them know that you're on your way in and about how far you are out. There's also a reporting sheet that will be at the very end of your sailing instructions. Go ahead and fill that out and turn it in. That's something that's easily forgotten about, but it's really important. And again, it's possible that we may need to inspect your boat, particularly if you are staying somewhere other than the Port Aransas City Marina. Please do that. Now, the other thing to do is to plan your trip back. A lot of this, or some of this, may be covered by our next presentation. So I'm going to introduce Tom Collier to give us our next presentation. I will be around for questions at one of the breaks, so feel free to ask me a question at that point. She's serious about keeping us on time.
Right. And I can start talking as soon as I get my picture up here. There it is. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. Okay. All right. I've got really four things I'm going to talk on. Elements of these: safety offshore, or actually in the channel. Whoops. This thing just went automatic. Obviously, I'm not talking fast enough. All right, so navigating safety in the channel, safety offshore. Okay. Well, that'll get me talking faster.
Okay, you can't put your hand on the trackpad.
Okay. All right. Elements of offshore safety. We'll talk about places to abandon the race and a little bit about the trip home. First thing I want to mention is the call rate. The Notice of Mariners. Good place. You should all go to this website. Go to local Notice of Mariners, District 18, and get the current one. It'll have information on buoys out of place, construction projects, where the dredges are. There's currently 9 dredging projects going on in this area. Not many of them are out there right now, but you should have this current information. Another good source of information is this Facebook site. It's called the Boater Information Guy. A guy named Philip Craw, for years, he's been putting this publication out monthly that lists all the dredging projects. He's kind of slowing down. He gets a little older and loses enthusiasm a little bit, but it's still a really good source of information. And he lists some links in there that can take you to places about the local area. So let's talk about the channels. I put this slide in there, I've used it for many years, just to kind of get the attention of the new people. Because most of the people I was speaking to were relatively new at Harvest Moon. Now we've got a lot more experienced guys. And I thought I'd really put this slide back in context. Here's what really happened. And this isn't something you would just kind of miss. Pretty good size tanker. Whoops. I don't know what happened. How do I get the slide started? the video, hey, Marie? No, the video is not starting. The video is not starting. No video.
Maybe
I played it. There we go. Okay. This is what really happened. He almost
There you go.
Okay, now I've got rest of the story. This happened in 2011 Calgary, first day of Calgary. The guy that was the skipper of this boat was a very experienced sailor. He's also a Royal Navy officer. Got years of vintage racing. You know, I mean, the guy had a lot of time, a lot of experience on water. You know, had good knowledge of maritime protocol. The only thing I can tell you is this was an experienced guy, a little too comfortable, a little too bold, and made a bad decision in the heat of the competition. And, you know, the point here is you don't have to get experience to get in trouble. Just, you know, you need to be careful and respect this commercial traffic. These guys are big. And that's really what I need to talk about. Most of what I want to talk about today is commercial traffic. You know, there's really three things that you need to know or remember about interfering with commercial traffic. Number one is the law. It's covered very well in the call regs, and I'll go over that in a minute. It's condition of the race, and it's just flat common sense. In the call regs, and rule number 9 says very plainly that vessels of less than 20 meters or a sailing vessel won't interfere with those vessels can only operate the channel. So when you use the ship channel, you don't have any rights. And you need to stay out of that way. The other thing is, rule number 9, and that rule number 9, you can get fined $5,000 for that. So if you get that 5 whistles, get out there and scare one of those pilots because he doesn't know what you're going to do. Even if you're in your mind, you're going to get out of his way. If he doesn't know it, those 5 whistles, that could cost you $1,000 a whistle. So go ahead or stay out of the way. Rule 18, this is probably one of the most misunderstood, misquoted rules in the sailing world. You know, you get a lot of people get a boat, start sailing, and get told, you know, sailboats have a right of way. Well, first of all, the offshore engine put in your motor. Secondly, on the hierarchy of who has the right of way, sailboats are pretty far down the line. They're behind the vessel not under command, that's the vessel lost power. Restricting their ability to maneuver, that's a barge. For the pesky one is vessels engaged in fishing. Those shrimp boats that we run into all over the bay, when they got their gear in the water, they got the right of way. And it's our job to stay out of the way. Another reason that this is a condition of the race, and David mentioned this a minute ago, is the Coast Guard is the one that issues license or the permits to hold these maritime events. And they are adamant that this not happen. So as he mentioned, the NORs cover this very well. I'm not spending time on it. Keep this in mind. If you get 5 whistles, you probably got the Coast Guard, probably going to get a call from the pilot. Race committee will get a call from the Coast Guard. And it would be a real shame to work real hard all the way down there. And I find it disqualified. The other thing is just common sense. Man, these guys are big. They're going fast. That's a lot of inertia. It takes them a long time to stop. You go in front of one of these guys, there's not a thing they can do. To tell you the truth, they're not even going to fill a button.
Hold the microphone super close to your mouth.
Okay,
Speak loud.
they're not, if you're going in front of one of these guys, they're not even going to feel a button. Also, you know, the average sailboat weighs about 15,000 tons, about 15 tons. These things can weigh 150,000 tons. That's not good odds. So you're not going to win that argument. Also, their visibility is very limited. I guarantee you, the guy, the pilot on this boat can't see that boat. Doesn't, you know, he may have seen him coming a long ways off. Now he doesn't know where he is. Again, if he hits him, he's not even going to know he did it. The other thing I want to talk about is wakes and prop wash. People really don't consider screw current suction. Screw current is an engineering phenomenon that has 2 components. One is discharge. Everybody knows about prop wash. It recognizes the water coming out of the back of the boat. But that water's got to come from somewhere. And that's the other component of screw current. And that's the suction side of it. It creates a low pressure along the side of the boat. And if you get too close to the side of the boat, it'll suck you right into it. Not necessarily suck you under it, it'll slam you up against it so hard you're going to need some gel coat repair. You know, it's just stay away from it. It's a message here. The other thing is rule number 8. The law requires, the call rate requires that if you make a correction, if you got to get out of the way of a boat, don't just scooch over. You know, it requires that you make a change in course that's apparent to the guy that's operating that big boat that you're aware of him and getting out of the way. It's something I see people do all the time. If he's not sure, you're going to get 5 whistles. The other thing I want to mention is the ship channel. This is a new configuration after the last widening project. On each side, you've got 200 foot of barge lanes plus a 35 foot transition area. It's 12 foot deep, it's a project depth. There's plenty of room out there. You don't need to be over in the channel. The other thing is, you know, when you consider a regulation barge that's 35 feet wide, and you got really 235 feet of weight to work for. You don't to work with there. You got plenty of room to pass without getting in the channel. I'll also mention that just about everywhere along the channel, there's a little room outside those marks too. You really got to pinch. For the key places in the channel, you couldn't get outside the mark and avoid the boat. But there's plenty of room inside here. So let's talk a little bit about offshore. This is kind of inside this line is a line of courses. As David pointed out, if you get out in that safety fairway, you're probably sailed so far you're not doing well in the race. There's a lot of other reasons not to be in that safety fairway, but I'll talk about those in a minute. Biggest obstacle you're going to have along the race course is rigs. I've been screwing around the Gulf of Mexico for 60 years.
Speak up, Tom.
I've been screwing around in the Gulf of Mexico for 60 years, and I don't think I've been out there at night that I haven't seen at least one rig unlit. And coincidentally, the Notice of Mariners, a list of unlit rigs is pretty inaccurate because it changes day to day. Okay. So next thing is strip boats. They're very easy to see during the day. Most times you'll see them anchored. But at night, first of all, you need to understand that the shrimp are nocturnal. That's when they're going to be working. When they're at night, the sailing instructions will tell you that the basic rules of sailing go out the window, and we're now operating under the call rigs. Problem with that is, this is what a shrimp boat looks like at night. This is an easy one, but they're so lit up on the back deck, their navigation lights are obscured, and it's hard to tell which way they're going. But they have the right of way, and the pilot, the captain of those things is probably in the back deck helping call the shrimp. That thing's probably on autopilot, so give them room. This is a ship, what people would like for a ship to look like at night. That's not really what you see. What you see is something more like this. And the reality is, the navigation lights, the masthead light on the ship over a vessel over 50 meters only needs to be visible from 6 miles. The navigation lights only 3 miles. But that's not very far. You got to be paying attention. You got to be paying attention to it. This is what you do not want to see. Let's talk about crossing the fairways. There's lots of shipping fairways out there. You know, we should be way inside of them. And ship versus rigs, I will tell you that ships, you know, at 3 miles visibility, that means if you're approaching it, if you're meeting a ship, he's doing 18, 20 knots, you're doing 6. That's a closing rate of about a mile every 2 minutes. That means from the time you see him, you got about 5 minutes to react before he's on top of you. That ain't much time. Unfortunately, we're not in the shipping lanes. It's a good reason to stay out of it. But just be aware of that. We got to move it fast. Being overtaken, you got about 3 minutes. They do a mile about every 3 minutes. So you maybe got 10 minutes before you notice that guy coming up behind you, and he's on top of you. Again, these ships are really dangerous at night. Also, wakes, when they go by, you have to do the sea speeds or ever laden, and that wake can feel like a tsunami. Yeah. Oh, yeah, well, I missed that. This is about places to abandon. First place is Galveston. I just want to mention this because there's been a lot of boats lost on Galveston jetties. There's been some experienced sailors that are lost. Galveston jetties, just want to remind you, runs kind of east and west. In fact, when you go out to Galveston jetties, you probably go about 6 miles east of Galveston before you turn back. As you're approaching it, if you're coming back to abandon the race, you feel like particularly at night, there's the illusion that you're there, and when you're across the beam of the lights of Galveston, you still got about an hour to go. The other thing that makes it really bad is that Bolivar Coast kind of falls away, and it's very dark over there, so it makes it feel like it gives you an illusion you're sailing on the shore, and you're not. If you turn in, if you get suckered in, you're going to go right into those jetties. And they stick out there a long way. The thing, a guy told me a long time ago, actually before we ran their GPS, that the 2 most important navigational tools on a boat are the compass and the depth sounder. If you pay attention to that depth sounder, you can't get in trouble in Texas coast. That dotted line is 35 feet, and that's kind of your own. Same 35 feet of water as you're approaching these channels, and be safe. You can see where that puts you, well outside the jetties. When you get to the channel markers, you can line them up and take a left turn, and you'll be perfectly safe. Well, this is the places you can't abandon. The jetty is 34 miles from the start. Matagorda, 62-mile interval. Fort Rams is 147, roughly 147, that's a 51-mile interval. The point is that you're never more than about 30 miles away from a place you can get out. These are all well lighted, easily navigable at night. Just remember the closest place may be behind you. And most times sailing distance conditions are much better, higher priority in making the decision where to go. You know, it's a lot easier to turn around and go down on that. A longer distance, you get there a lot faster and a lot more comfortable. And then once you get, remember 35 feet, you can't get in trouble. So this is the first place. This is Freeport. Freeport has gotten very busy. There's a lot of ship traffic in and out of there. So you need to be careful. There's also a lot of workboat traffic. There'll be some front boat traffic, not near as much as there used to be. 35 foot puts you way outside the sea buoy. This is Freeport at night. Freeport, you got to be, what is the microphone? You get to Freeport at night. You got to be kind of careful of this. There's a good range marker, but it's hard to spot from the cockpit of the sailboat. The forepart of that range is right where that yellow, the aft part, range is obscured by these lights back here. If you don't know where you're looking, it can be kind of hard to pick out. But because that whole white area is lights for refinery. Also, there's been dredge reported working in there at night. Last time I looked yesterday, it was up against the bank. It's an ongoing project. It was up against the bank up in Gala completely, up in Gala, Freeport Harbor, away from this completely. But the other night, I think it was Friday night a week ago, a boat reported it in the channel working at night. This was about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and it was not lit well. Evidently a problem with the lights, so you didn't know what side to go on. Matagorda, again, 35 feet of water, puts you plenty of distance off. Inside the buoys where you can line up and turn in. I want to tell you about this channel. This is an aerial of what it looks like. Matagorda Bay is huge. The tide's running out. If you have a strong southeast wind blowing in that channel, or waves stack up in there, it can be pretty treacherous. So you have to go in there at night and be on your toes. The Fort Ramses again, 35 feet puts you way out there. Keep you safe. This is the 6th buoy, which used to be where we turned in for the finish. It's generally considered a safe place to turn into those jetties. This is what the jetties look like. And the main point here is that the pilots are been one of our biggest concerns down there. They don't like all these sailboats coming in. Corporate Church has gotten very, very busy. A lot of big tankers going in and out of there. These guys, when they're going in there, they have to worry about when they're going out there. They get to the harbor, and they got a big turn to make at harbor island intersection, and they've got to be positioned right to make it. And they're screwing with possibly 3 knot outgoing current, a lot of wind, and the last thing they're worried about, they want to worry about, is some sailboat. The best place for a sailboat is along the, right over on the red markers or green markers. Just stay out of the center of the channel. That's a blind corner, and you don't really see them coming until you get up there. This again shows you how tight that turn is for them. And again, coming into the jetties, you can't really see outbound traffic. They make a call, and actually they monitor channel 12. It's a good thing when you finish the race, before you come in that channel, flip over there and listen to traffic. They make an inbound call out about the 3 marker. It takes them about 20 minutes from the 3 marker to the intersection. Going outbound, they make them at 7, 8, this up by Piper Channel, and Allegro. That takes them about 15 minutes to get to the intersection. So they'll make a call about 15 minutes before we get there. If you're on 12, you should hear it. Just be aware of it, because you can't see them Another thing I want to mention is when you get, another thing I want to mention is when you get there, you want to take your, you still got your sails up, you want to take your sails down, round up in this area, get out of the channel, you can go over there into the entrance to Libyan. There's plenty of water, plenty of room, you got the lee of the island over there, and you're out of the way. Docking. I'm going to just go through this real fast. Column 73, about 100 yards before you get to the channel. Okay. How about this? When you get to Port Aransas, call the docking committee on 73, about 100 yards from the channel. They're going to ask you.
Keep it touching your beard.
Yeah. All right, they're going to ask you the name of your boat, the length, and the width. Channels, slips are going to be assigned basically on a a first come, first served basis. They're trying to fit deep draft and wide boats and minimum number of channels. The chances are, there's a good chance if we've got very many boats, you're going to get around, particularly if you're one of the later boats in. Have your dock lines and your fenders ready. Every year this is a problem. And you get in there, the dock lines aren't ready. These guys are there to help you, and it's pretty hard to tie, particularly when you're trying to rest up against another boat, and they're trying to keep everybody safe. Those guys are volunteers. They're there to help you. Every year, somebody throws somebody a dock line that looks like this. So this is not a dock line, but it happens every year. The other thing, this is not a fender. These dock guys, be patient with them. A lot of them been up all night. They're there to help you. They're volunteers, and I know you guys are tired too, but again, they're there to help you. Radio communications. Houston Ship Channel, that's channel 13. You should monitor that the whole way down to Galveston. The Yellow Brick. Incidentally, check these frequencies in your sailing instructions when they come out, because this is taken from a year or so ago. But he covered that, mark it channel up before you get to the 11 mark. Race Committee, channel 72. There used to be, and I don't know what your sailing instructions are going to be, a requirement that you call in at each of these locations on 72, or just make a blind call. The finish is on 72. Port Aransas pilots, I mentioned that, they're on channel 12. It's a good thing to turn that on. Docking Committee, they'll be on 73. And once again, this mentioned before, I'll say it again, everybody should monitor it. And if you've got a radio down below, keep a handheld in your cockpit while you're racing. As I mentioned, in case somebody else is out there who needs it. The trip home, I'm going to do this real quick. Okay, just to remind you, it's a long haul, 83 miles once you leave Port Aransas to Matagorda. Matagorda is the only good stop. Port Connor, there's not much there anymore. There's not much more in Port Connor anymore, so it's a long haul. There's just not any good places to stop. So be prepared for that. Matagorda, here's your transient slips. They've got a restaurant you can tie up against the wall over there too. They're very accommodating, and but it is about the only good stop. From Matagorda back here is 95 miles. That's a long haul. You got an alternative to stop at Freeport, but it's not very good anymore. A lot of people have gotten where they stop at Office Bio. Freeport to Matagorda is 42 miles. But you just don't have much in the way of choices anymore. Surfside Marina, you've got some slips, you can call there and make a reservation. I talked to Mingo at Bridge Harbor, and they've got all the ships torn down now, the only thing left is old floating dock, and he told me there were only 7 slips available. And he also said they have no credit card machine, no phone number, you gotta call him on his cell phone, and everything is cash. So that's, Freeport Bridge Harbor is in the process of being rebuilt, and it's just not a good option right now. Obstacles, we've got the, well, first of all, there's a link that you can go to the Galveston Corps and their locations, and they've got operations for, one for Colorado locks, one for Brazos floodgates, and you can get the current conditions from that. This is just a quick picture of the Colorado locks. These Colorado locks, there's a phone number up here, which you get it from the website. They answer, the monitor channel 13, the answer to the call sign 412, or you can call a Colorado lock, but they'll answer 412. You'll hear the towboats call them on that. And call them, don't just poke your nose in there. You might meet a big barge coming the other way. Also, it's a good idea to check with them ahead of time. If there's a lot of rain up in the watershed, these locks could be a handful with a lot of current running out in the river. Brazos River floodgates, we've got the same sort of thing. If there's a lot of rain in the Brazos River flood basin, this thing can be ripping too. Most of the time, this time of year you hit them, they're wide open. A little better picture of what they look like. They answered a 411 on channel 13, and there's also a phone number up here that you can get off the website. Just another picture of what they look like. So the last thing I want to cover is sound signals. A lot of sailboats are really bad about not talking to these barges. These guys can help you, particularly if you're running at night. You get to talking to one of these guys, telling them you're behind it, they'll take care of you. The better ones, they'll tell other traffic, the traffic they're meeting, that they've got a tows they're meeting, they've got a sailboat behind them. They'll keep you aware of obstacles, and it makes the job pretty easy. Just find one going your speed. All you got to do is follow those 2 yellow lights. I don't recommend running intercoastal at night, but that's the safe way, probably the safest way to do it. About these sound signals, the sign signals, the sound signals, they're really not optional. Sailboats and pleasure boaters are bad about not talking to these guys. The rules say shall. They don't say that it's convenient. They say shall talk. And then the second part of that, most of them do it on radio. So you need to be talking to these guys. They'll appreciate it. It's one of the reasons they bitch about pleasure boaters all the time is because they just never communicate. They don't have any idea what you're going to do. The last thing I want to cover is what those rules really mean. When you talk to them on the radio, they say, I'm going to take you, I'll see you on the one whistle. What one whistle means is I'm going to leave you on my port. If you're meeting a boat, you're going to pass port to port. If you're overtaking a boat, you're going to come on his starboard side, your port. Same thing with two whistles is I'm going to leave you on my starboard. It's really not complicated. It's just the language they talk. You need to speak their language when you're dealing with these guys. And with that, you guys have a safe trip.
Thank you, Tom. Next up, we've got a short presentation about the yellow brick, and then we're going to hear from Pete Picciullo a little bit about the SERs, and then we'll have a short break. So break is in sight. Move your body well. We can cue up the next slides here.
All right, Tom, you owe me 2 minutes. All right, I'm responsible for the yellow brick trackers. If you're not familiar with those, we haven't used them in the race. These are GPS devices that we rent, and it's applied to each boat that's racing. And two main purposes. One is, again, safety is the theme. Where are the boats? What direction are they heading? What was their last position? We always know where everybody's at. The second main reason is that we can have a finish that is recorded electronically. Again, we've got a virtual finish line like Mr. Como talked about. Port and starboard, they're points in your GPS, but when you're out in the Gulf, you don't see any marks because they're not there. So really try to hit for that middle point, and what happens is there's basically a polygon in here that says once you enter that polygon, we're going to record a finish time. So having this device, again, lets us track you and lets us get a finish time. And a side benefit is people at home get to watch, and maybe even if you have your phone, you can search, it's called YB Races. You actually have an app that tracks, and you can see where everybody's at. You can look at classes, you can look at boats, you can have tails. So if this is something that you or a spectator want to look at, we do have the maps from prior years on the website. And you can go to YB Races app, you can search for Harvest Moon, you can look at prior years. You can see up here, there's a lot of controls and different things that are kind of interesting and fun to use as a spectator. So people at home, encourage them to use that. So that's what tracking is. What it's not is some of the things we're talking about today. It's not meant to replace your AIS or a VHF or any of the other SCRs that we've got. It's really just a tracking device. It does have a little button. It's covered. You have to flip it up and push this red button. That's really not going to do anything. It will alert us. It says, okay, well, they pushed the button. You may be out of the VHF range for us. If it's truly emergency, you've got boats around you. You've got an EPIRB. You've got the ability to communicate with the Coast Guard. So alert button, it sometimes gets pushed accidentally, but you got to be really deliberate about it. So unless there's a really good reason you want to have an extra alert, we'll probably then try to contact the Coast Guard, see if they're in communication with you. Again, there's not a lot we can do. Mentioned virtual finishing earlier. Again, as already mentioned, and I'll also say, see the sailing instruction for details. So I didn't put a lot of detail up here about the exact coordinates. That's not the responsibility of this presentation with the SIs. But you will have the points you need to hit. Program in the midpoint. There, it could be you could be finishing at night, and if you're trying to hit this pin in and really get a close finish, maybe something's maybe it's raining, it could be nighttime. You don't want to do the whole race and miss the finish, and just really want to emphasize that. We do have very simple coordinates on this. It's going to be a fixed latitude and a very easy to program into a GPS kind of points. So look for that in the SIs, program it in, and then find your midpoint and program that as well. A little bit on logistics. The pickup, as mentioned earlier, is at the skipper's meeting on October 3rd. You will be hearing from me, and I've got my contact information at the end of this. But basically, there is a deposit form, just a deposit. These are devices that we rent, and so if they're lost, damaged, that is a responsibility of the skipper. We don't charge credit cards or do anything. We just have to have that form as deposit. So I'll email that out. You can bring that night. And then it'll be picked up. That device is going to be assigned to you. So even if you have your own tracker, we need to use these for this race. Operations. Got a little one-page guide that'll be in a little baggie for you with the device. So if you're not familiar with it, read that. Again, my information will be there. You can contact me if needed. This one's real important. Don't change the settings. This is one of those where someone said, well, okay, I've got this device, or I've used this before, and they go in and say, well, I'm going to change the report rate, and it causes a lot of problems. The device has instructions, basically, that are downloaded from the vendor, so it tells it how frequently it reports. So if you start changing settings, you may run out of battery, it may not perform properly, you may not get a finish. It could cause all kinds of problems. The other part about operations is the morning of the start. SI, as we normally say, by 9 a.m. So when you get up, you're getting the boat ready, go ahead and power it on that. I put a lot of effort into turning all these on ahead of time, making sure you've got a good charge, making sure they're reporting up through the satellites. I turn them all off before they get distributed. That way, when you get the device, you don't have to say, well, I'm going to go check the charge, or I'm going to go change some settings. Try to give a good experience here. So just be ready to turn it on the morning of the start. We start tracking on the map, and as you're doing the check-ins on the VHF, you're coming by near marker 11. We'll make sure, yep, you're on the map and everything's reporting well. If not, I'll try to contact you on the radio or via text. But generally, it's a set it and forget it kind of operation. Which brings me to this point, which is the handling. So where do you put it? Whenever we have a question or an issue, the first thing the vendor always says, well, it does have a clear view of the sky. And so usually, if you can find a place on the boat that's open, they're weatherproof, so it doesn't matter what the weather is. Avoid areas, don't put it right next to where your spinnaker sheet's going to pop up and get tangled up. Or right near a handhill where your crew's going back and forth all the time. Usually on a stern rail, something like that is going to work best. The device has a kind of a bungee loop, which you can kind of do like a luggage tag to secure it. And then I have two Velcros that you can attach. And then the whole thing kind of just slides into this pouch. And you'll see if you haven't used it before, it's pretty straightforward, but there are a lot of ways to attach it. You can even put a zip tie or two around it just for extra security. Just main thing is clear view of the sky and just keep it out of the way, and it'll just sit there, and you'll forget that it's there. Then when you're done with the race, there are two options we've got for returning. One is the check-in table. David mentioned the check-in sheet. We only accept that check-in sheet if we also have the tracker. Again, they're rented, and so we just collect those up to ship back to the vendor. So bring it with you to the check-in table, unless you've done option 2, which is return trip. And a lot of people have their own devices. Maybe they've got a Garmin, maybe they've got their own yellow brick, whatever they may have. Not everybody wants to do this, but about 10% of the people like to have this on the return trip. So whether they're going offshore or through the ditch, this is an option. So if you want to use this, go to the shop area of the website, and you can purchase that. It basically covers the cost. Every time they send packets to the satellites, that's what the cost is. So that just covers their cost. If you do pick option 2, just return it by the 16th, the following Thursday, to the guard shack right here at the front of Lakewood. That do all right?
You're doing amazing.
All right. So you haven't heard from me now, but next week I'll send out the deposit form. If you can fill that out and have that ready, that'd be great. I have my contact information, that's my cell phone. If I have any other communications ahead of time, but mostly it's just making sure that you've got a way if you have questions or anything like that, here to help. All right.
I think we're good. I'm going to hand this microphone to Pete, who is dressed for the presentation.
Thank you. First of all, she's cute to step up here. How many brave old sailors do we have in here? Raise your hand if you're brave and you're old. Well, there's a couple of you. Okay, well, the other analogy I'll use is fools learn from their own mistakes. Geniuses learn from everybody else's. So that's part of this. And so my name is Pete Patello. I'm actually a member of the U.S. Sailing Safety at Sea Committee. And so I'm also a part of Storm Tri-Sail. I'm actually helping with the clinic, the course that we're doing here later today and tomorrow. Really trying to facilitate safety from a training perspective. Let's see if I can get back where I can see my own writing here. I'm also happen to be chairman of the Great Lakes Multi-Hull. I spent half my year down here in Texas. The other half is in the Great Lakes. I think they almost call that an endless summer. Try and call that off. And I'm actually on a trimaran, Farrier 33. I do own a Catalina 25, so I do sympathize with going slow. I understand that. But again, my role here today is really kind of just an overview. I'm not trying to replace the sessions that we're doing here later today and tomorrow. So I know some of you are just here for the safety day, so part of this is kind of giving you some of the background. If you have any question at all or something from my discussion today, my email is here at the bottom. Send that to me, and I'll do my best to respond. Go ahead. So one thing I like to start with, because everybody just assumes they know. The issue when we talk about SCRs, there's a lot of people who will call different things in the industry. But really, at the end of the day, we're trying to define rules or best practices for sailors. And so the issue is, what's the priority? The priority is the skipper is responsible. And so I want to make sure absolutely clear, no matter what's in these SIRs, no matter what we try to tell you, it's your responsibility. Don't divert that. Don't say, well, according to that, sir, I shouldn't. It's your boat, it's your crew, you are responsible. And that's one thing U.S. Sailing is trying to stress. We're not trying to take that away from the skippers and sailors. At the end of the day, you have to do the best for your boat and your crew and in your situation. It's too hard to project everything you could possibly get into. The next group that really is involved, like with Harvest Moon, is the OA. Now, Harvest Moon is actually the operating authority is the Bay Access Sailing Foundation. They're the ones that put the actual SIR out for Harvest Moon. So in there is the rules that they have. They can supersede the rules below. And so they can't supersede the skipper. They're not going to tell this. The skipper has to do what he has to do. But they're the OAs, which is what you see on the HMR website. Below that is U.S. Sailing. So U.S. Sailing has what we call that would apply to this event would be our coastal one for monohull and multi-hull. So there's a set of rules, or a set of recommendations, or a set of requirements in there. But again, the OA can override that. In most cases, like Harvest Moon, take that U.S. Sailing one for coastal and they'll mark it up. They'll add or subtract some things. And then at the bottom of that is World Sailing. And so they have a set of requirements. And so I'm part of the committee that's at U.S. Sailing. And so what we're constantly going to look at, what did World Sailing do? You know what, they're kind of not, they don't know what the hell they're doing. So we're going to change that one. So we do modify those things or look at how it reflects us here in North America versus most of this World Sailing is Europe based. And so there are some changes. There's a lot of debates on the committee for U.S. Sailing. We've got people like Stan Honey. The lines on the football field, he's sailed on the road a few times. But we have some architects. There's a lot of knowledge, probably hundreds of years that's on that committee for safety, trying to evaluate what's the best for recommendations out to the sailor. So this isn't something we take lightly, but it is a constant debate. There's nothing rarely goes cleanly as far as how we come up with stuff. Next. Okay, so I want to talk about a few changes or a few things that are a little bit different for HMR, from an HMR perspective. The first one is U.S. Sailing and World Sailing has really been pushing. They're finding a lot of rudder and keel failures out there here in recent years. And so really trying to work on making sure people, especially when they run aground, make sure they get things inspected. This regatta is not required for the HMR 25. That's been waived for this event, but we tell you guys, if you run aground or you've got an old boat that has never been inspected, this is a risk. We're seeing this reoccurring around the world. So be careful on these keels and rudders. And mostly for, again, really affects all boats. EPIRB, PLB. We see new technologies constantly coming. We're going to talk a little bit about AS beacons in a minute, but this whole idea that as the technology moves, make sure we're on top of that. Now, the challenge we're running into is as we add new technologies, do we get rid of some older requirements that maybe were before technology? So that's a constant debate. But in this case, if you're going to go out and start buying EPIRBs and so forth, realize in 28, we're trying to tell you in advance, the new ones are coming with both technologies in the same unit. So this is a pure AIS beacon, you have pure EPIRBs, they're combining those two, and so start looking at that, because in 28 we're looking to make sure that people are starting to move to that. Now, in reality, that's a date we pushed out, it could get pushed out further. We just don't want to have a surprise where, hey, you know what, you really need to have this newer technology tomorrow. So giving you plenty of time as you make your decisions for buying technology. Crew overboard button. That was recently changed, again, especially for shorthanded crew, to make sure it's up and be easily accessible. Must be in the cockpit if you only have a two-person crew. Now, I don't think do we do a shorthanded on this event? No. Okay, not much to apply, but again, just like you know, that was a new thing that came out. Hand flares for Harvest Moon. U.S. Sailing and World really push Solus, which are longer burning, or higher end. In fact, we'll be testing with Solus, I believe. Yeah. But for this regatta, they pull back to just what the Coast Guard requires. So just let you know, that is a change from what U.S. Sailing and others push. But again, you can use the standard Coast Guard flares. Crew overloads, crew overboard sling, more accurately known as life sling. So this right here, so you guys have all seen the life sling. One of the things that came out here about a year ago was an advisory. So we actually had some people go out testing these at night. So if you had a crew overboard, you need to use a life sling at night. The current rules that were in U.S. Sailing and in the current OA is that you just need a little self-activating light. Most guys will put strobes up here, and that's what's required. The current regs require that. Now, I do know that they're resubmitting a change to that. They're submitting a change to that, and so the problem we're finding with this, with that little light that you would put in here, usually the batteries go bad over time if you haven't checked them recently. The other thing is when you're towing that, guess what? You can't see it at night. And so the other side that we see with the strobes and that is that if you have a man overboard in the water with their strobe on, and you've got this behind the boat with the strobe on at dark night, which one is which? That's easily to get confused. And so the new advisory that just got put out, and it's been put as an option, it's not a mandatory for this event, is to adapt these with manual lights, because you don't throw this off the boat immediately. This is when you're going to recover. You're several hundred feet away or whatever. You put it out, is you pull it out and you turn the light on. It's a steady on light. And you do one on each side. So no matter which way this is turned, if it's upside down or the other way, you can see the light. And the testing they did with this up in New York, I believe it was, they found that was a whole lot easier to lit things up. They could tell the strobe, they could tell the MOB, and so that was a key change. So the advisory, the new addendum that they're putting out will allow that. Some of the OAs required that you had to have a strobe in. What they're saying is this is now acceptable as well. And ultimately, I know U.S. Sailing will probably adopt this next year, is make this the requirement going forward. It's their recommendation. And then the other thing is we do is that you'll see on this line is put reflective tape down about every 6 feet. And so when you're towing that behind the boat, you got a spotlight, you can easily see it, where the line is at night when it's dark. Okay? So that's just something new that just really, I don't know if they've sent it out yet, but they're planning to send out that, addendum to the SCRs.
I have a question on that.
Sure.
That was my one question on the SCRs is you just said it's not required, but in the SCR it says on 37.1, the boat shall carry.
You are gonna require a life sling.
No, my question is.
Repeat the question.
Repeat, go ahead.
You repeat the question. You got the microphone.
So my question was on 3.7.1 on the SCR, you just said it was not required for this year, but the SCR says it shall be there with the light on the life sling for this year. So it is or is not required?
You have two options currently. So originally you had to have a self-igniting light. That is required. What they've changed to though is now you can have this as an alternative. So you either have the strobe or the self-igniting light, doesn't say actually strobe, but self-igniting light, or you got to reconfigure it this way. You have two options now. But that is required to have one of those. Okay. AIS antenna stuff, I won't touch much. All they did is that the current stuff, like U.S. sailing stuff, wants you to have a masthead. They're allowing for this event to have that down off of your rail. Several boats have already configured that. All they're doing here is that you have limited, your range is more limited. And so they are going to allow you to have a rail-mounted antenna. Some of us would say that you always want the best range, but we have some people that already made that installation, and they're going to allow that. Next one is for multi-hull mainsail reefing. Prior to this last year, the rule had been changed years ago that on a coastal race, a multi-hull had to be able to reef their main 50%. And so that was an ocean requirement. The problem was that a lot of the Farrier and Corsairs, when they were designed, the masts were designed, they were designed for the sail to reef to the hounds. And so that's 30%. And if you go below that, they're breaking masts. So they've got example, the loads change on the mast, so they're breaking the mast. So the rule got changed this last year, and it reflects for this regatta, it's a 30% reef. Realize too, we're not out in the middle of the ocean halfway to Bermuda, so the issue of survival out there, you can take, there's a lot of other options here. This isn't a measure that was critical for a coastal race, so it got changed to 30%. And then safety at sea training, at least 2 must attend safety day. I don't know if that's really that new, but again, I just want to make clear, I know David said that earlier, so that's a key thing that we want. We're trying to promote safety. We want you to take the outline course at least, or come to the stuff this afternoon. Yeah, that's right. Okay, couple things that are in discussion. And part of this today is, again, I'm not guaranteeing anything, but these are just letting you know what the committees are deciding or discussing or researching. And so one of the ones that's kind of really started here in this, because we have a lot of cruising paths, is the escape hatch requirements. Currently today, you have to at least mark someplace on the hull where you would cut if you had to rescue somebody. And so we just changed a few years ago, any boat built after 2002 had to have an escape hatch. That requirement's been removed. You have to have a cut. We're actually looking at backing up from that further. I know a lot of the different catamaran have different solutions, and so we are currently reviewing and researching that. So I expect something here next year will probably change on that. As of today, I know HMR has created some waivers for some boats, and I know we recommend they probably before that they do that, but that's been an ongoing issue. Lifelines is another one that's constantly being debated. Is it Dyneema? Is it stainless? Is it plastic coated? There's a lot of different pros and cons to all those, and that's something that and the height of them, how far they have to be off the deck. So just let you know, there's a lot of debate and discussion around that. AIS beacons, as we talk here, this is a great technology, and when it's used correctly and people are trained in how to use it like that. And so that's been the challenge we're having with them. I know the Chicago map here, last year, one of the TB-52s had a crew fall overboard, had the beacon. Of course, there's a recurring story that we're hearing out there. I know at least 3 or 4 of them now, usually on big monohulls, where it's blowing 40. We should probably take our spin down. And so in Chicago a year ago, they had a guy went in the water with one of these, trying to get their spin down. Took them a while. In the meantime, another boat, he had a beacon on, so the beacon set off correctly. Another boat came right to his aid and rescued the guy. And so that's a good example of the things working right, the technology's working correctly. The problem with these is that we had a situation here a couple years ago on Harvest Moon where somebody had one of these in their jacket, and that he had it programmed to his boat, but he's on somebody else's boat. It went off. And so the problem is with these, you can realize in the US, when these things go off and they're programmed to your boat, they'll notify you via the radio that it's gone off. The boat that is programmed to. Everybody else might get a blip on their screen, and might get an alarm on their plotter. May or may not. We found a lot of different examples depending on the vendor. But the problem is these things don't only notify the boat you fell off of, as far as via the actual over the radio. In Europe, they made it so it notifies every boat, but the FCC in their wisdom here decided to only notify the boat you fell off. And so there's some challenges with this tech. There's some ways to manually do things and so forth. I'm going to leave to Jonathan later in this session, or in the actual sessions this afternoon, to talk more about options. But I'm telling you, it's not a plug and play, put it on and walk away. There is things you need to do if you really want to take advantage of that technology. The ability to know where your MOV is, especially if you didn't take your spinnaker down with blowing 40, is probably a good idea to have these things programmed correctly so you can find your crew. I know I've had a situation at night on Lake Michigan in the past where I lost a crew on the delivery to Chicago, pitch black, no moon, and his life jacket didn't inflate. This was way before this technology. I got the guy back. Way too much luck. I mean, yeah, I did the quick stop. I did a lot of the right things, but the fact that we got close enough to find him was a miracle. And to this day, every one of my crew has one of these just to make sure I don't get in that situation again. And then, so it's important to understand the technology. Go ahead, and if they have other ideas or other things you're concerned about, or you've learned from your perspective, hey, should we be addressing this in the SERs or recommendation of the sailors? Again, email me those ideas. We'll engage in those discussions, and we'll see if we can get all the experts to agree at this point. Okay. One of the biggest things in U.S. sailing, the biggest thing we've discussed, and I know a lot of effort's been put in with Richard and Storm Trysail, is really MOB or COB or POB. I think we got rid of TOB. I don't think anybody knows what that is. But really, it's trying to rethink about, especially for offshore races like we're doing here with Harvest Moon, is to plan and really come up with a method that works for your boat when it's blowing 30 in a storm at night. The simple throw a cushion up, go around, pick it up, which all of us have done over the years. That works great in a beautiful day. But if it's in a storm, which is when this stuff happens, or at night and it's pitch black, then having the method that will work for that, understand that method, you can always adapt down from it, but you better know how to do that, because that's where we're getting people in trouble. And so that's really what we're going to be working on the stuff I know on Sunday for man overboard recovery, is really with that assumption. Again, the whole idea here is the biggest change is, again, stop the boat. It's not about doing all the different other going around picking up. Just stop the boat. Get organized. Get your sails down. Get your motor running. The best way to recover somebody in these tough conditions is under motor. Now, I know some boats have challenges to that, but understanding what those challenges are and adapting and knowing the difficulty you're going to have in those conditions, at least you understand. You might want to be on the radio quicker to let people know you're struggling. And again, practice those methods, and then you can always back down from that. Again, from our perspective, and then using the life sling to hoist somebody back aboard and not running them over. We've had too many situations. We had a TP-52 out of Chicago years ago, ran over the guy 3 times, he perished. Okay, it's just one of those things, they used the wrong method. They were just trying to pull them up over the side versus using the life sling. So we're learning around the world. One thing that US Sailing's doing is we're plugging, every time there's an incident anywhere in the world, I get everybody in the committee, everybody at US Sailing is involved, gets emails and the stories and so forth. And so the last one I'm going to leave you with here is that there was an MOB situation on the Bayview Bank. So there's a race, it's 101st year. We've done 12 of them, but you race from just north of Port Huron, Lake Huron, all the way to Mackinac Island, about 250 miles, especially the long course up through Cove Island in Canada. And so shortly after this year's race, they had been predicted for days a storm. There's going to be a storm at the start. Shortly after, within a few hours, there's going to be a storm come through. And so, very common. I've been in storms down here in the Gulf, but storms on the Great Lakes can whip you pretty good. But really what this happened here is that you have a Great Lakes, Santa Cruz 70. Okay, or some people call it Great Lakes 70, 70-foot monohull. Very experienced crew. Again, back to this thing of, low and 40, we probably should take the spin down. They knew the storm. Nobody has a life jacket on. So that comes back to this a fool. I'm wearing this life jacket. I'm not brave anymore. In fact, you'll probably see me the whole week here. I'll probably just leave it on, just so I don't, in case I fall in the pool or something. But really this issue, if you've got a storm coming, put your life jacket. And that's the skipper's responsibility. You demand your crew put your life jacket on. So here we are in a storm, it's blowing 40s, I can't get our spin down, and one of the guys gets washed overboard. No life jacket. And the problem here is that, now the good thing they did, so let's talk about some good things. They instantly threw everything they could find off the boat. Their mom that they had, which was up on the rail, because they were heeled over so far, when they released it, just fell in the cockpit. So they had to dig it out of the cockpit and get it off the boat. And so they also radioed everybody around them, man overboard and coordinates and all that kind of stuff. And so they essentially got other people now looking. An hour later, they haven't seen the guy in an hour in the water with no life jacket. Now, in the water, this guy was able to swim to the mom and actually hold on to it. He had no other gear, and the problem is the Great Lakes are cold. Now, they're at the southern end. So he did. If he was in the north end of that lake, I don't think he'd survive an hour with where he's at. But he did survive hanging on to that. And another boat, the boat that fell was Trident, was the Santa Cruz 70. Amani 2 of FAR 49 heard the radio. They went looking for the guy, found the debris field. And for after an hour, they finally found the debris field, found him hanging on, and rescued him. In fact, they didn't even try to transfer him back to the boat. I don't think he wanted to go back. But he finished the race on the FAR 49. But he recovered. The headlines to that was a miracle. And so it's one of those things, take this seriously, guys. Until it happens to you, then you're going to get religion. And that's why I'm standing here today. And while if I had lost my nephew 60 years ago, I wouldn't be standing here. I wouldn't have a boat. I couldn't have. So don't take that risk. And it is a bigger risk than people understand. We get stories constantly of people falling overboard. There's a couple cruising out in I think it was in the Atlantic, and he never taught his wife anything. He just did everything. Their cruise long, he falls overboard. It's days before she can even figure out how the sat phone works with the autopilot on. Of course, he's gone. And so it's just story after story. If you get enough of those, you know what, you might do something different. So again, take this seriously. Again, we want you guys to be safe out there. Appreciate it. Thank you.
We all deserve a break. David wants to say something.
Yeah, I want to make one real quick note on the SERs. So there are updates that are made from time to time. And the PRO may make the update, change it, and it may take a few days to get onto the website. So what I'm saying is the current SER is the best thing to look at for now, but when the SIs come out or in a week from now, go look again. You don't have to review the entire SCRs, just on the right side, there are the yellow highlighted fields. There may be additional changes that can come up in those fields. The reason I say that is the one that was under discussion earlier has changed, but has not yet made it to the website. So just do keep an eye on that.
Excellent point. Thank you so much. You got 15 minutes. Come back. We're running a little bit ahead of our printed schedule, so come back at 9:55 and we'll have today's keynote. Thank you.